We come at this point to verse 35 of the 5th chapter of the Gospel of John. Jesus has been talking to the religious leaders about those that attest to the truth claims that he's making. Of course, his appeal is going to be to the attestation of heaven, but in that connection, the subject of the person of John the Baptist and his role in this matter comes into play as well. Of course, John the Baptist had also attested to the claim of Jesus to be the Messiah, having said of him, he's the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world, having borne witness that at the baptism he had seen heaven placing its imprimatur on Jesus. This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. And yet Jesus does not, in the final analysis, appeal to the witness of John the Baptist, but to something far greater. But certainly John the Baptist had an important role to play, and that continues to be the subject under conversation at this point, as Jesus continues saying, "Ekenos." This is the demonstrative pronoun. It means that. This is the nominative, singular, masculine, that one or that man, ein. This is from eimi. This is the imperfect, third person, singular. That man was, ho luknos. This is the word that means a lamp, not to be confused with the Greek word phos, which means a light. A light has a little bit more of an intrinsic power to it. Impliedly, a lamp is something you light and it may eventually go out. It requires fuel, that sort of thing. And so, very importantly, the word luknos is used here, not phos, but either way it says that man was the lamp. And then two participles. The first one is kaiomenos. So this one was the lamp, the burning one, the burning lamp. From kaio means to burn, as in a wick burning in a candle, something like this. The second one, phynon, also a participle. Both of these are masculine, singular, nominative, going along with the article here. So the burning and the shining. Phyno means to shine. So that one was the lamp, the burning, and the shining one. This John, of course, had quite an impact, and he was one that had garnered a considerable following there in Judah and throughout Israel. And Jesus allows in that connection humes, second person plural, nominative of the pronoun for you. So you, de, soft conjunction, but you, athelesata. This is from thelo. Thelo means I wish or I want. It can also have the idea of being willing, and that's probably the notion here. So this is the second person singular, aorist, active indicative, and you were willing, we might say, at least for a while. And then we have agaliathenai. This is from agaliao. It means to rejoice. It's a somewhat unusual word in the New Testament, but it suggests the idea of rejoicing. It actually has at its root an idea of jumping. So it suggests a rather exuberant kind of joy. And Jesus says that you were willing to rejoice, as it were, pros horon. This is the preposition pros. It means to or toward. This horon is, of course, the word for hour. Pros takes the accusative, and so to or toward an hour idiomatically means for a time, and usually suggests for a brief time, and that's exactly the meaning here. You were willing to rejoice in to photi, autu, in the light. Here we do have the word light. The lamp would produce light, and the light was something in which they were willing to rejoice. But the sense of this phrase is that they were only willing to do so for an hour. One might infer from that as the biting criticism of John became more pronounced, more acute, these who especially were the religious leaders became progressively less willing to appreciate and endorse his ministry until finally the time came when they essentially repudiated it altogether. And so we have the real problem with John the Baptist was that he was so truthful that, of course, it left these who were the religious leaders with nowhere to run. And the consequences for John, of course, eventually became political as he was arrested and finally beheaded. So Jesus grants that John the Baptist had a role to play. He did give an attesting witness to Jesus himself, and yet finally Jesus is not appealing to John the Baptist as the second witness who will confirm his truth claims, but is going to elevate the claim to a much higher level, and it's actually going to be heaven itself, God himself, who will provide that attestation.